Hello, craptacklers. You are now flipping over to the B-side.
Hello and welcome to Cinema Craptacklers Presents B-Sides, where we dig through the screaming pile of crap that the internet has to offer to find that rare gem. And don't forget to like and rate us wherever you listen to us, because it really helps get the Craptacklers word out there. It helps the podcast, be better. And who doesn't want this show to be better? I know, I do. I'm cutting all of this out. This is Dave, and with me are my uncrappy co-hosts,
Tara
and Adam.
Okay, well, tonight we have a very special guest with us from Florida Men on Florida Man, the podcast that takes insane headlines about the Sunshine State to focus on and talk about the rich history of Florida. It's one of the Florida Men himself, Wayne.
Yay!
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us on the Cinema Craptacklers journey.
Of course.
Really excited to have you on. I'm a big fan of the show. How did Florida Men on Florida Man start?
Yeah, so we knew each other for a while. We met in high school, and we were all musicians, and we toured together for a very long time, and got tired of being poor.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
And taking baths, behind bars and stuff like that. So we just kind of settled down and had families. And then about 4 years ago, wrote the pilot for this show and pitched it. And we've been kind of doing this thing ever since.
It's a very fun show. One of my favorite things about the show is how you take the idea of Florida Man, which is kind of an iconic urban myth. And
Sure. Yep.
And you use that to get listeners, and then you start talking about kind of like, and I said it in the intro, like the rich history of Florida and all the good things that came out of Florida. And there's a great pride for your home state. Did you always feel pride for Florida, or is that something that has grown?
I think we have always felt it, but it has grown. Like I said earlier, when we were touring, there was this kind of, oh, these guys are from Florida. And so the meme has always been there before it was a meme, the idea of Florida being the Wild West and kind of this crazy place. And so there was this sense of we can either feel out of place and the odd man out, or we can lean into it and go, no, we're from Florida. It's who we are. It's part of our identity. And so we kind of chose that path. And that is kind of how, the show's culture was born. And so when we teach about the history, it's because we are proud of our state, but at the same time, we're learning as we go. Some of these stories, are new to us as well. So it's neat to watch other people's pride in their home state grow at the same time as it's happening for us,
That's awesome.
It's a great show and a lot of fun, and I love the positivity that comes out of it.
Thank you. I appreciate
through that journey.
It's funny because Dave doesn't usually like positivity, so this is nice for him. It's nice.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I heard that, actually. Very violent guy, Dave. I've been nervous about coming on the show.
You should be.
Wayne, I actually want to take advantage of this situation to pose a question to you.
Please.
Oh, God.
As people who live in California, which is Dave, Tara, and myself, and as someone who lives in Florida, which are the two states most likely to be taken back by Mother Nature at any point in time.
100%.
I'm curious on what you think the likelihood is. Florida goes first, California goes first, because one of us is going to go, or both. It's just which one's going to go first.
I think Florida's going to go, and it's going to be at our own hands.
Ooh.
Like, it's going to be self-inflicted. I think something that we do to try and, we're going to try to solve a problem is going to create a problem, and then we're going to sink, and the rest of everybody else is going to be like, well, we knew it. There it is.
I just get this mental image of a bunch of Floridians with chainsaws, like at the border, just like, we did it.
We're upset. Yeah, and so it'll be one of those things where the rest of the United States realizes they should have acted sooner. You saw it coming, but
You're like, it's not rising sea level. It's rising Florida level.
No, it's Florida.
It's just like, that's it.
you know those kids who, when you're in an elevator and they all try to jump at the same time to make the elevator feel weird? That's us as a state. That's what we're trying to do to our country.
And I think the science behind that stands. It stands. If everyone in Florida jumped up and down at the same time, it just goes right into the ocean. It just goes.
Yeah, don't spread that rumor. It'll happen. I promise.
It's like anti-Hands Across America.
Right. 100%.
Jumping into Florida. That's what it is. There it is.
Actually, your publicity department just sent me this note to ask you.
Please, shame on them.
Of the Florida Men on Florida Man hosts, who is the best, and why is it you, Wayne?
Wow. Yeah, we pay them well. No, the best is Josh. I will go to bat for him any day of the week. That guy, he's so charming, and he can tell a story that makes absolutely zero sense. And people just fall in love with his style every time. Like when we have an episode air, our social media team, they're constantly sending in questions from listeners and whatnot. I never get one. Cameron doesn't get one. I mean, we may once in a blue moon. It's all Josh, constantly. So much so that when he got a girlfriend, we hid it for a very long time. We were like, we can't find out this guy's not single anymore. Like we have to lie for a while.
Wait, so you guys are like the boy band of podcasts, right? Where it's like all the girls have their favorite, and you can't tell anybody when one is taken because they'll be
girls or boys. Yeah, girls or boys. Yeah, it just depends. I mean, look, I'm married. I've got children. I'm the most boring one out of the bunch. I'm the safe option.
Yeah.
But the rest of the boys, they're right. Yeah, thank you. No, the rest of the ones, they're wild and unkempt. But people like them. I don't see it. But it's the truth. It's the truth statistically. Josh is the favorite.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, he's one of my favorites too. And we had him on last year to do
That's right.
much worse movie. And I gotta say, I had texted or talked with Josh a little bit to invite him back on, and then I invited you on, and so now I feel bad, but we'll get Josh on. Let Josh know we'll get him on.
Betrayal.
Catfish.
Listen, I love this. I'm going to hold this over his head for a while. But truthfully, he's the guy that out of all of us, the one who he would pervert his stardom. But he has an anxiety that keeps him in check.
Oh, good.
So truthfully, the reason why he doesn't go on and do guest spots as much as the rest of us is because of his anxiety. And so this is our time to go out and be like, hey, we exist as well. It's not the Josh and the Florida Men show.
Good for you, Wayne. Take a stand.
To get out of his shadow.
Yeah.
It's rare, but I appreciate it.
I will say the Florida Men sounds like a doo-wop group that could have very easily existed. And if Josh would be like what's his name from the Temptations who tried to break away?
Josh is the front man. He's the tenor. Yeah. He's the one right in front of the microphone.
Yeah. But he's also the one who's most likely to get like a drug problem and think he can do it all on his own and then burn out really quick. One. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. It makes sense.
Those are the rumors we spread. We got to bring them down a notch.
Oh, amazing.
Well, do you want to take us into the intro, Adam?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, today we're bringing together the best of Florida and Los Angeles as University of Miami grad meets Hollywood in one single man, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But as we'll see, if the man The Rock was meets the man The Rock is, then it's the end of reality.
All right, here's how Wikipedia describes this movie. In near future 2008, Los Angeles, referred to as the Southland by locals, is a dystopian city on the brink of chaos, overshadowed by the growth of an underground neo-Marxist organization. The film follows the criss-crossed destinations of Boxer Santaros, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, an action film star stricken with amnesia, Krysta Now, Sarah Michelle-Geillor, a psychic ex-porn star in the midst of creating a reality TV show, and twin brothers Roland and Ronald Taverner, both played by Seann William Scott, whose destinies become intertwined with that of all mankind. The Taverner twins are revealed to be the same person by the engineers of Trier, duplicated when Ronald traveled through a rift in space-time, while Boxer has become the most wanted man in the world despite his political ties and his having the fate of the future in the form of a prophetic screenplay foretelling the end of the world in his hands. It's Southland Tales, and you guys, I have to say that Wikipedia freaking intro is exactly as confusing as this movie is. And it's too many things.
Yes. Hey, can I ask a question?
Oh.
Have any of you ever called it the Southland?
No.
I have never called it the Southland.
I think it's mostly called the Southland by news. Like the news calls it the Southland. Like local news, like KTLA.
Whenever anyone says Right, but anyone says Southland, I think, South. I think Georgia. I'll think Florida. I could even go Texas. You know what I mean? I don't
What about
think...
Tennessee?
Sure, Tennessee.
Maybe North Carolina? Where's that line for you?
That's a good question. I think anything below Maryland. That's all the South.
Yeah. Yeah, it was... There was so much going on in this movie that basically Justin Timberlake narrates the whole thing, and he's telling you about this world, and the world is so confusing. It's like it's the future, and there was these nuclear strikes, and people are trying to rig the election, and there's this neo-Marxist underground, and all this stuff. Like I was like, okay, you're setting up so much world. I have no idea what the plot is. At the very end, I was still like, who wants what and why?
This movie, I literally was like, because I did stop it, because I was like, okay, this is a lot of exposition. Okay, this is a lot of exposition. Oh my God, it's been 9.5 minutes, and we've just seen weird computer graphics. We've heard JT, and meanwhile, a ton of big celebrities have flown by the screen, and I don't know what any of them are doing or why.
There was a ton of exposition in the beginning, and what I thought was interesting was, first off, I want to say I thought I was being pranked. Because before watching the film, I was reading the description and I was like, there's no way this is real.
No.
This is, you three are the professionals, so you guys have seen some bad movies, probably more than I have seen. But I was like, there's no way statistically that there's a more jumbled plot. You know what I mean?
No way.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. But I did see, and I did see that the film relied on the fact that there were context found outside of the film from 3 graphic novels, apparently.
Yeah. But they're not, were they well read enough for them to be relevant to the average movie-going public,
Right. No, if you have to read
right there, half
3 novels before the movie.
Yeah.
If you have to read,
not looking good.
If you have to read, period, the majority of America is just out. They're like, nope, done, nope.
Right.
Anytime I have to do homework before a rock movie,
Yeah.
chances are I'm getting an F on the quiz.
Right.
Oh my God.
I think we have to start with, in addition to all this exposition, how many, especially at that time, but also today, how many well-known actors are in all of these roles? And I'm like, this director punked so many agents in town to get their clients in this movie. Sarah Michelle-Gellar is really in the front part of this movie, and it's just oh my God, why would you agree to say any of these lines? What do you this is terrible.
Well, I feel like what happened was the director approached the agents and was like, I want Michelle-Gellar in a movie. Well, she only wants to take roles that she doesn't usually play. She's a porn star.
Yeah.
All right. John Lovitz. I don't know. He's a cop. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who kills people?
Yeah. Will Sasso. Totally grounded drug dealer. Oh, all right. Yeah, that's a challenge for Will Sasso.
Hey there, we'll be right back. And now, back to the show.
Do you mind if I just read off the list of supporting cast in this? Because it is an impressive list for what is not that impressive of a movie. Spoiler alert. Mandy Moore, Justin Timberlake, Wallace Shawn, Bei Ling, Nora Dunn, John Larroquette, Kevin Smith, Sherry O'Terry, Amy Poehler, Zelda Rubinstein, who was the psychic in Poltergeist, John Lovitz, Will Sasso, Christopher Lambert, who played the Highlander, and Janine Garofalo.
And Beth Grant.
Massive.
Yep, Beth Grant's in it.
Yes.
I was every scene was there's not a person I don't know on this screen. I know all these people.
It had more Saturday Night Live alums than a Lorne Michaels birthday party.
Well, I wonder how much of it was, because from what I understand, the director had just come off a wildly successful Donnie Darko.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I wonder how much of it was hey, this guy's the next big thing. He's a big deal. You're going to want to be attached to this. But you would think when the agent's hey, so listen, here's your character. And you got to trust me on this one. I feel like I would be let's give him another film or two before I commit to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part to like talk about too, is this was the same director as Donnie Darko. And Donnie Darko was a big hit. I found it to be a fascinating movie, enjoyable. And so I actually was like, when Dave or Adam, I don't remember which one of you found this. I was like, how have I
It's
never
not me.
I was like, how have I never seen this movie? This movie seems like right up my alley. And it literally like 30 minutes in, I was like, oh, okay, this is why.
Yeah. Tara texted us.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't think I can finish this movie. Oof.
It reminded me, I felt like, at least early on, like somebody watched 12 Monkeys,
Yes.
and then they were like, we could do this without thinking it through. And we can get Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it felt like.
The thing that staggers me too about this movie is the amount of money that
Yes.
was spent on it. It was a staggering amount of money. And they must have, I feel like what happened was they were like, this guy's the next big thing. Let's greenlit whatever the hell he wants. And then they just realized what a shit show it was and kept throwing more and more money at it, hoping that was going to solve the problem. And it did not solve the problem at all. No.
I mean,
And it kind of seemed,
go ahead, Wayne.
well, I was gonna say, it kind of seemed like this M. Night Shyamalan vibe, where it was like, the director kept saying, well, you just don't get it. People just don't get it.
Right.
It's like, no, man, it's a bad movie.
Right.
It's just really bad.
Yeah, and I was like, one of my notes I wrote is I need more Donnie Darko like amorphous plot instead of like, this is too much information. Like you are throwing way too much plot at me. Like I can't even make heads or tails of this. But Adam, to your point, I looked it up afterwards. The budget for that movie was $17 million. By the way, it made $330,000, and I feel like that's the right amount of money it should have made. But like what was crazy is, you know, again, coming from a production side, they've shot so much stuff in Venice, in like Santa Monica, in places that are expensive and hard to shut down and get as much control as they did, and downtown. And I was just thinking, I would be so furious if I did all this work to close down Venice Beach, and this is what you did.
Right.
How dare you, sir?
How dare you?
I just think I keep going back to the plot and what was going. First of all, I have to apologize for this because I didn't look at the runtime of the movie when I said, "Hey, let's do Southland Tales." It's 2.5 hours, and it was literally 30 minutes too long. There was like 3 song and dance numbers in it that felt unnecessary to me. There was a part where Justin Timberlake sang the song.
He didn't sing it. He lip synced it.
Oh, I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier. Yeah.
And that was like a music video.
I might have done.
It was a music video in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
It's covered in blood.
Yeah.
And covered in blood. And then they did the national anthem.
Right.
And then there was the like 4 females doing a dance sequence near the end, which was, look, coincidentally, I watched Donnie Darko this week as well, having no idea it was the same director until like 2 days afterwards. And some of the things in Donnie Darko are the same that happen in Southland Tales. One of them is the dance number. In Donnie Darko, there's a big elementary school girls dancing number, and it was a big part of the plot. There's this idea of looping time, which is also a big part of the plot in both, that there's a kind of a time loop. There's an absolute boredom of watching the movie, which is from Donnie Darko to Southland Tales. I find it kind of impressive. But no, the things that are similar are really amazing, but it was just so long. I'm sorry, I rambled for a little bit there.
You
So
were
did
like
this
this
movie,
movie.
Dave.
Yeah.
Fine. Jinx.
And honestly, and afterwards, I have a tendency when I watch a film, I set aside like half an hour so I can go to Reddit afterwards and make sure that I wasn't the only one that liked it or didn't like it, you know. Groupthink. And I learned after the fact that was actually the theatrical version was shortened. That the Cannes version was like 3.5 hours long.
Oh,
and so the version was like an extra 60 minutes, and they're like, "Hey, you got to cut this down." And he was like, "Impossible. All of this has to be told."
Oh my God.
But yeah, I told my wife afterwards, I'm like, I think And it's fun because I know we get to talk about it, and it was for, it was for this. But I told my wife, I'm like, I've never watched a film that felt like a fever dream.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
it felt like somebody else was like telling me their fever dream or like an LSD trip, and I was just like, yeah, man. Like I just kept like, agreeing the whole time. Like, yeah, it sounds right.
When someone goes back in time, there's a present them and a future them, and if they touch hands, the world will end. Because
world
Well, then
it
ice
puts a
cream
tear
trucks
through the fourth
fly.
dimension.
Yeah, ice cream trucks fly into the air when two
Yes.
people join hands. By the way, Wayne, thank you for calling this a film.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be so generous as to call it that, but thank you
Well,
for showing it the respect it should deserve.
I feel like that's the thing is I feel like there were a lot of big concepts. Like,
Yes.
I mean, the attempt was there. And even when a film that does time travel and time looping, even when it's done correctly, it's hard to digest.
Yeah.
And this movie, like we were saying a little bit ago, had so much exposition. I mean, it was so heavy-handed. And even still, I was like, I'm lost at times. You know what I mean? I just don't quite get what they're trying to say here.
I felt like I was lost over 50% of this movie. And I was like, you know what I mean? Like, I also felt like the beginning was fascinating. I like the home movie thing. Like, they started out with like this interesting home movie coverage, and then you see a nuclear explosion. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what this movie is about. Amazing. I think this is a great way to start. That, like, okay, a nuclear bomb has gone off in Texas, which is obviously going to affect this country. And we're in World War III, right? Which I was like, interesting timing when we watched this movie, guys. And as far as World War III. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. So we go to California because people have migrated there, or like, in order to survive or get out of Texas, we're now in this like post-apocalyptic whatever. Except that then they add 7 other layers onto it, which is like a missing movie action star, a porn star, a script, another cop who was in Afghanistan. Like, there's just like, wait, what? Wait, why are you putting
Political intrigue?
There's so many other things like putting on top of this thing that was initially just very interesting. Like, I would have been very interested in the movie that you first presented in the first scene.
If Dr. Seuss made this book, it would be called A Hat on a Hat on a Hat on a Hat on a Hat. and it would just be all like a weird looking creature lifting hats off his hats and revealing new hats underneath the hats.
By the way, what global superpower would strategically bomb Texas first?
Literally.
Like, that doesn't make...
Twice.
I'm sitting there going, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, come on. First of all, we should immediately discount whatever, like, superpower was attacking us. We're like, they clearly don't know what they're doing. They're not worth our time.
And they draw the parallel, I believe, in one of the graphics on the film. They say, like, America's Hiroshima or something like that.
Yes,
Like
that's right,
They
do.
purposely draw the parallel there, which, again, I mean, like, statistically, my favorite genre is, dystopian future, like, post-apocalyptic. I love that stuff. So I was the same way. When it first started, I was like, okay, this is cool. And then, like, I would say about 11 minutes in, I was like, don't like it.
Yeah.
They've showed their hand.
All of my notes, except for maybe 3, are questions.
Oh, I have so many questions.
Right.
So many
Let's hear some of those questions.
Like, for instance, The Rock has a tramp stamp?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed it. Like, I'm sitting there going, because here's the other thing. The Rock has a lot of tattoos in general. I do think he had more tattoos in this film than he actually has. The problem is, I don't know which are his legit tattoos and which ones are applied for makeup purposes, which is why I'm sitting there going, does The Rock actually have a tramp stamp? And maybe he's covered up in wrestling for all these years, and now he's just letting his freak flag fly because he figures no one's going to see this movie anyway? Like, was that his strategy behind it?
I like to believe they needed sex appeal.
Yeah.
And they were like, look, we have Sarah Michelle-Gellar. But she was still kind of fresh off the teen drama and stuff. So they're like, hear me out. Let's give a tramp stamp to The Rock.
They really didn't.
That'll solve the problem for us.
Perfect. Mwah.
He also had a star around his belly button.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that.
Is I guess the front tramp stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, the one note I wrote down that I was like, I'm glad that The Rock and Mandy Moore were given opportunities after this to learn how to act before they went in front of the camera again. Because the two of them together, I was like, oh, they're both trying very hard.
I wrote down, it's fun to see The Rock be in a movie before he developed his charm.
Yeah.
Because he did seem to be in the act of finding how to present to camera in such a way that he does now, where you know, he knows all his beats and looks and how to turn to camera to have the camera love him now. But in this movie, it felt like he did not. That he was still developing it. It was just kind of interesting to see.
He was doing this thing with the twiddling fingers. So it was supposed to, like, that's a very, like, as an actor, you call it, like, very indicating, right? Like, you're indicating that, like, something is wrong. But then he did it for the rest of the movie, and he looked so dumb every time he did it. Because he would make a weird face, too.
I was waiting for, like, some sort of explanation to happen. Like, oh, he's doing this because what he does, he's actually doing math about, you know, the future trajectory of the world. Something like that. You know what I mean? But they were just like, no, that's just The Rock being The Rock.
The director was like, okay, we have to show that you're nervous. How do we do that?
Goes,
I could twiddle my fingers in front of my face.
I haven't learned that yet. Yeah.
Done.
That was it was surreal for me to see. I mean, because like you were saying, Dave, he has that kind of, I think, mastered now, whether you like him or not. Like, he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And it was surreal to see him, like you were saying, like at like a learning curve. Like, he was at a pivot point where he was still turning the page in his career, and it felt very professional wrestling. But you know, and that was odd because I wasn't really exposed to him until he was already like a megastar.
Oh.
So seeing this made it feel very dated for me.
Speaking of professional wrestling, has Sherry O'Terry always been freaking jacked like that?
Yes.
Has she always, and I just never noticed? Because, like, so Sherry O'Terry in this movie plays a radical, left-leaning, neo-Marxist freedom fighter. Yeah. And the first time you meet her, she's got cornrows.
Yep.
She's in a tank top with a barbed wire tattoo on some serious guns, and she's buying guns. Yeah. After which, she punches this guy in the face and threatens to kill him. And I'm going, what? Like, how do you... That's Sherry O'Terry. That's the Spartan cheerleader. How are you going to lead into this movie with that as her first appearance?
I loved it. I thought I bought the first scene because I was like, yes, Sherry O'Terry, break out of your comedy bubble, but also at the same time, because you know that scene with the Highlander was like, I was like, oh my god, this scene I'm so excited about, but I wanted her at one point to like. I wanted the scene to turn so then she could Sherry O'Terry, like she could be funny and like or do whatever. But I was like, oh no, like they're just gonna make her a badass. And they did the same thing with Amy Poehler. I was like, okay, so like I respect that these women are like excited to not just play comedians, but like the setup of this movie and the tone that's all over the place. Because once in a while there was like a joke or two, but they didn't get them. They are not the ones that are delivering this joke or two. It was like Sarah Michelle-Gellar when she was a porn star, she kind of tripped down the stairs. Or like, wait, I don't know if this is supposed to be campy. And the director was like, play it as straight as you can. And then it just wasn't. And then because I was so confused. I was like, I don't know what to make. And I still don't know what either one of those characters really did in this movie.
I want to touch upon that Sherry O'Terry thing real quick and the tone and the idea that they cast some of the best comedians of the time in this movie and then said, don't be funny.
Don't be funny. None of
you. And done. And it was so confusing on the tone because it's why are you casting them like all of them?
Right.
Like if it was only Sherry O'Terry and the rest were drama stars, you'd be like, oh, she's fitting in as a drama character. But when you cast a bunch of comedians and then don't do anything funny, it's kind of off-putting to the audience, right? Or it was off-putting to me at least.
It was off-putting to me when it was insinuated that John Lovitz was having sex with Sherry O'Terry. That was just full stop. Like, what is this film? Like,
I literally
something's
was
wrong.
Like, same thing. I like wrote in my notes. I'm like, this is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen. Like, it just was too much. I was like, oh.
Like, there's a scene in this movie, people, if you have not seen it, which I assume none of you have, where two animated cars have sex.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, the commercial for the new big SUV.
Yeah, that was not as unsettling as the idea of John Lovitz and Sherry O'Terry having sex. To me, personally, it was just not as yikes.
I think now that you bring up the trucks having sex commercial.
Oh yes, go on.
A lot of the little interstitials and bits, there was all kinds of like cutting to news channels that had like 5 different things going on the screen at the same time, like commercials, little newscasts and stuff, which all felt very Paul Verhoeven and RoboCop. You know, like in RoboCop, they had these kind of satirical commercials that were making fun of the times, like the SUX, the new car. And in this, I felt like they were trying to do that same thing, but I wasn't sure what I was supposed to get out of it because I didn't get satire out of it. I didn't get like just flat out comedy out of it, and it didn't move the storyline along. You know what? It was like this whole movie was a tone poem that a junkie tells. This is the Homer Odyssey of junkie tone poems.
It does seem like at some point in time during the writing, he was shooting for like a satirical, like, take on what's happening in the world today.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like he was trying to get there, and there was a commentary socially and whatnot. And I almost felt like, considering there was like a pretext that I guess was meant to be read before watching it, and then there was an hour that was cut, in post. It makes me wonder, like, if it would have played out better, like as a miniseries or as a television series. Maybe the idea could have been fleshed out in a patient format instead of crammed into. Well, I say crammed into, it's still 2.5 hours, but still, like, you know what I mean, crammed into a smaller format. Because the idea, like you were saying, RoboCop, I felt that reference as well. Like Starship Troopers, it's been done well before, and I think the effort was there, but it almost seemed like there was like 9 writers and no one communicated.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just in the title, Southland Tales. What I'm expecting to see are several self-contained tales that happen to overlap at one point or another.
Right.
And I think, Wayne, your suggestion with like a TV miniseries, I think, or TV show actually would have been pretty good, because then you could have had a rock episode. You could have had a Justin Timberlake episode. And then, by the finale, you've somehow tied them all together, and it probably would have been a lot cleaner, and you could have a lot more focused of a tone. But in this case, it was, car sex and Sean William Scott dropping the N-bomb. And,
I know.
Which just was
they say bitch a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the
I don't know why that
disrespect of
stood out to
women.
me.
The disrespect of women was high.
Oh.
I mean, every single woman character, I think it was 100% of them, said some version of "I need to suck a dick." Like it was so jarring to me because these were also characters where it was left field, right? Like Sarah Michelle-Gellar is a porn star. Okay, so I'm going to expect it. But it's jarring hearing it from her, first of all. But then the rest of the characters that say it are sort of out of context of like the action that's happening. Like the woman on the beach who confronts The Rock, and she's trying to and again, I still don't know what her character literally, like the point of her character was at all. But she's basically trying to warn him, like she's a character in the movie he's written, like she's taken on the character, and then she's trying to warn him about something, and then he's like, okay, and she's like, yeah, but I'm not leaving here until I could suck your dick. And I was like, wait, what? And then she like puts a gun to her head.
Yeah.
What? Like,
I don't know.
what?
I don't know. I'm not seeing the problem.
How dare you?
No, yeah, and it comes down to
It's very
Justin
problematic.
Timberlake shooting her from, like, I guess, Santa Monica Pier. He's he's got a sniper post, on the top of Santa Monica for some reason, and he sees her with a gun to her head, and then he ends up shooting her because I think she was gonna shoot The Rock. And then immediately after that, and maybe even before it, The Rock is walking around like a 6-pack of beer, and he's just drinking the 6-pack of
That's
beer.
right.
Like, what is
And
happening?
it's all attached.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, nobody drinks beer. Like it was like a 6-pack with together. He opens one but lifts the whole 6-pack to drink one beer. And I'm like, why would you? No one's gonna do that. I don't care how strong you are, Rock.
There were moments that felt like they belonged like in a Franco comedy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they were written for pure comedic purposes, but then shoehorned into the film. And I thought that as soon as the 6-pack of beer thing happened, I'm like, okay, like that was an idea that the guy wanted to do and just kind of shoehorned it into here. It doesn't make any sense. But I feel like they tried to blame a lot of the weird, obnoxious behavior off on that drug. And I forget what it was called now, but that The
Karma?
introduced
Was
words
it
that was
fluid
also-
karma?
It's fluid karma,
Fluid karma,
first of all.
yeah.
That's yes.
And there was the different types of fluid karma. And I felt like they were loosely trying to explain the derailment of characters' personalities, but it was just done so poorly.
Yeah.
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 I like what you said, Wayne, that it was an excuse for them to act weird. And
Right.
but the drug was never really set up. And in a way, it was like maybe the fluid karma drug was very popular from the graphic novels. And everyone behind the scenes like, you have to add the fluid karma drug. And Richard Kelly was like, oh, you want me to add this drug? Okay, here you go. They take the drug and then they just do weird things. How do you like that? You know, the whole movie's like a Richard Kelly challenge to you.
Yeah, it feels like,
Like-
Richard Kelly was like a petulant 16-year-old making a film. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was like, no, and then all the women want to suck people's dicks. They
Yeah.
do all the time. Not
Yep,
just
but
my
why,
girl. I'm gonna
Richard?
show my girlfriend and she'll know. Yeah, it's like
And he was like, you know what? In 15 years, people will look back at this movie and say it was genius because it's ahead of its time. It's like,
Nope.
No one's gonna say
no,
that. No.
no.
One of the notes I wrote was, "I'm so mad at the abuse of all this talent," because I do feel like there was like
Yes.
if you have like a dream team of like, okay, great, look at all these people that said yes, that are like so on your side after Donnie Darko and success, and then they all show up and they're like, let's get to work, and you're like, this is what we're gonna do, and they're like, oh no, we're still here. Like, what are we gonna
I
do?
made a mistake.
We
Dave.
still have careers.
Dave, you recently watched Donnie Darko, so this is really directed to you because I haven't seen that movie. In
Literally
like 15
finished
years.
it yesterday.
Yeah. I would argue, even though the budget is a lot higher in this movie, Donnie Darko was better shot, right? Like
yes.
it was.
I think
Yeah.
Donnie Darko was better shot and it was a better movie. And this was shot a little bit like on the frontier of digital shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
It felt like where the picture just wasn't quite filmic. Like now you shoot digitally and everything looks like flawless film, but this felt very much like it was home video shot. And I don't say that in a very negative way. I just think it had that quality.
I would agree. And one of the notes I wrote at some point in this, there was, I forget what scene it was, but I'm like, oh, this just feels like a bad student film. And it was because it was like the composition of shots, how they were shooting it, what they were trying to cover. And I'm like, and you're just not making your actors are working and we can see it. Like that was like, I think that was the hard thing as far as like how they shot it too. It's like, I feel like the DP's also like, I don't know where to focus. So I'm just going to turn the camera on. Here we go.
Well,
And you guys are professionals. You do this. You know, you watch poor movies, and this is new for me. And so I'm trying to rationalize everything because I feel like something has happened to me, and I had to sit there and let it happen. You know what I mean?
Being punished for some
Out of
reason.
curiosity. Right, yeah. So, but like, do you three feel like maybe there is an excuse somewhere buried where, you know, perhaps this guy had this idea that was just too big for film and the suits got involved and they're like, hey, man, like, we got to cut this. I need you to make it make sense. Do you think that's part of it? Or do you think it's all like on the writing side of things? It was just poorly written and therefore it's impossible to execute?
This is just my opinion. I'm guessing that this guy came off Donnie Darko, and studios and executives were like, what do you want to make? And he had just spent how much of his life working just on Donnie Darko. And so he had a really loose tangential idea of the next thing he wanted to do. And so he was like, well, maybe we'll want to do the time thing again. And, you know, I want to deal with, the left versus the right and the political climate. They're like, great, here's $17 million. And before he was dealing with a budget of $500,000, whatever the hell he had for the last movie he made. And it was just like, oh my God, blimps that fly and nuclear explosions in Texas. And just, my guess is that's how it went off the rails. I don't think he had a solid concept to start, and then he just got flooded with money, and so he just said yes and yes and yes and yes until...
It doesn't feel like a solid concept at any point in the movie.
I think that's Adam's right, because when you have somebody that has a hit like that, right? People line up and are like, we'll give you the most money to do whatever you want to do. And then you're like, cool, I'm going to do this. And then studio people and like, they're too scared to go, hold on a second, are you sure about this? Because they don't want him to get upset and like not make another amazing like box office film. So it's like, sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and sometimes there's no one hitting the brakes. So I feel like it was this movie, I imagine, hit the perfect like balance balance of both of those things.
Yes.
And I also think Wayne hit it earlier when he said, "Oh God, it just left my brain."
That we're professionals? Because he said professionals now twice.
He said we do
I don't know
this.
if you guys are... Yeah, we do this. We're professionals.
You do this. Well, but there's a similar concept in the music industry. Like it's the sophomore flop, where you have a freshman record that does really well, and everybody's like, "Cool, we're going to invest in you. We need to do that again." And then now all of a sudden you got deadlines and time constraints and budgets and people standing over your shoulder. So I'm sure the pressure is just like, hey man, like, I'm meant to do indie films. I can't handle Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Sarah Michelle-Geillor and Stifler from American Pie. You know what I mean? Like,
And after his success with Donnie Darko, everybody's agents was calling this dude up being like, yo, Will Sasso wants to be in your movie. And he's like, I love Mad TV. Of course I want Will Sasso in a movie. Oh, by the way, Terry O'Terry and John Lovitz wants to be in your movie. I love that. By the way, Highlander wants you to be... What? I have to write...
Hold on, let me write a role for him.
Exactly. He drives an ice cream truck. Yeah, ice cream truck full of guns.
Yeah. I mean, should we rate this movie?
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it was a good time as any. Well, we have a 3-tiered rating scale here. The top tier, Cinema Craptaculous, this is a must-watch. The second tier, Craptaculous, this is totally watchable on a Sunday afternoon if you got nothing better to do and you have a hangover. And then Utter Crap, this is a hard pass. You want to go first, Adam?
Sure. Utter crap. Hard stop. Hard pass. Utter crap.
That's it.
That's it.
Adam was like, that's all I need to say. No follow-up.
I am not usually a succinct person, but today I will be. Utter crap.
Perfect. Listen, I'll build on that. And I want to say, not to Adam's point, utter crap. Absolute utter crap. Like, don't, like, I'm telling you, like, this is one that, like, don't even pass it on your remote because it is so convoluted. It is so, like, I got mad at you guys an hour in because I'm like, I don't want to finish this because I know it's not going to get better. There's not going to be any resolution. Let me stop this.
I blame Adam, too.
Utter crap.
What did you think, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with utter crap as well, and I hate it because I tend to be pretty sensitive, especially if I feel like someone's trying their hardest.
Oh, yeah.
I want to give them a pass, but the thing about it is, to even recommend this, you would have to, for one, you put your reputation on the line, yeah. But two, I mean, you would have to say, hey, for you to really get it, there's a lot of stuff you got to read and research first and then watch afterwards. And then it's like, no, you know what I mean? It's just as it stands for a piece of work to have to be successful and rely on outside sources. That's crap. It's a hard pass, unfortunately.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I saw this in 2007.
No, you wouldn't remember.
Video.
Dave, there's no way.
I have no memory of this movie, but I have a feeling that I did see it. But I gotta say, utter crap. It doesn't even hold up in the sense of like, oh, I see what they were trying to do, and they missed the mark. Okay, no, and there's not an enjoyable. I think Sherry O'Terry's the most enjoyable performance in the movie. Yeah, hard pass.
The last thing I want to mention on the utter crap, though, is I went on Rotten Tomatoes because, like you, Wayne, I was like, what am I missing? Like, I feel like I'm missing something, and I don't want to be like, are these guys going to love it? Like, I'm so nervous. And it still had 40%. And I'm like, who are these 40%? Like, it should have 2%.
Well, that's the thing is, outside of the context of your show, if someone that I know recommended this to me, I would be so afraid that I missed it.
Right.
Like, I would watch it and think, I'm an idiot, I'm missing something, and I have to rewatch it a couple times so that I can not be a pariah in my social circle. The person who didn't understand this film. But inside the context of what your show is about, I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to not like this film. You know what I mean? Going into it, I know it's going to be rough. And it was a nice way to break me in.
I will say this, like, I am super curious about the subject material, and I may go and read some of it just because I'm curious as to how this train derailed so badly. Like, such a bad situation that occurred. Like, and if people were trying to really stay true to some of this subject material, it must have affected someone at some point, for them to write a whole movie about it. 3.5 hours, if Wayne is correct, It's like, Yeah, so I may read some of it. I'm curious to see.
I'm kind of interested in that cons cut to see, like, does the extra hour help or not? I have severe doubts.
But when I read it, it tested poorly.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
I
that's
think
true.
yeah, they came out the gate swinging in the wrong direction, and it was just not good.
One thing I think is not a hard pass is catching Wayne on Florida Men on Florida Man.
Yeah.
Yay!
Woo, 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 woo.
I want to
That's
thank
sweet.
you so much for joining us, Wayne. And where can people find you socially and podcastily? Is that a word? I don't know. I don't.
It
think so.
is. No, it is now.
Mhm.
Excellent.
No, listen, I'm honored to be here. This is so much fun. Thank you so much. You're also great at what you do, and the show is amazing. And I had an honest to God blast. Yeah, it's Florida Man on Florida Man. You can really find us anywhere. Our social handles are FMOFM Podcast. And even if you're not from Florida, you can lean into the show. It's a lot of fun.
Wayne, I want to let you know something. This is a warning to you. Is Dave talks about your show a lot.
Okay.
I think he's moving to Florida.
Yeah.
And I think he's
Yeah.
gonna be a co-host with you. And I don't know how he's gonna do it, but
I'm
he's
gunning
trying.
to be the fifth Beatle.
You're welcome. You're welcome to come hang out in the studio with our pink background. You have to, we try our best to, like you said earlier, we lean into the Miami Vice aesthetic.
That
So we'll hook you up, man. We got a wardrobe here, and we'll kind
Yeah.
of go with it.
I can do T-shirt and a jacket.
I got 2 words for you. Yoko Ono.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Oh, wow.
Dave
Just saying, like
Humphreys.
Josh and
Dave
Dave.
Humphreys.
Josh and Dave. Sorry.
I love it.
Wow. Wow. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us on this B-Sides Hate of Dave journey. This is Yoko Ono, and ever present with me are...
Ringo, I'm Tara.
And Adam.
No, you're really Ringo.
Shut up.
I'm the Ringo.
And again, thank you to Wayne. Thanks for suffering through that movie.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if Josh joins us, we will get an absolute worse movie.
Yeah.
And
I hope so,
and maybe something a little better for the next time you join us.
for sure. Thank you so much.
I feel like waving now, and it's like, it's just kind of like cut.
Thanks again for joining us on our Cinema Craptaculous Presents B-Sides Journey. Subscribe to Cinema Craptaculous on iTunes or Spotify. And if you weren't totally offended, or even if you were, please rate us on iTunes. It helps us get the Craptaculous word out there. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @Craptaculous.